This is a bottle of Coke. You've probably held one thousands of times. But have you ever wondered that why it just feels so perfect? Your hand doesn't slide, your grip feels secure, natural, like the bottle was designed specifically for your palm. In 1915, a small glass-making company in Indiana was given a challenge. Create a bottle so distinctive that you could recognize it in complete darkness. And they came up with this, a shape so iconic that almost everyone on the planet recognizes it instantly. A shape that hasn't been changed in the past 100 years. But people don't just recognize the bottle, they also recognize the taste. And somehow, Coke tastes a lot better in the glass bottle than the plastic one. But why is that? Is it the iconic shape, or there's something special in the glass bottle that makes Coke better? And if it is better in this glass bottle, then why do Coca-Cola sell more plastic bottle than the glass one? So there are all these questions that I want to dig deeper. But all of this make me wonder that why did Coca-Cola made this iconic bottle in the first place? Atlanta, Georgia, 1886. A pharmacist named John Pemberton was mixing up something in his backyard. He was trying to create a headache remedy. But what he ends up with was a syrup that, when mixed with carbonated water, tasted pretty good. He calls it Coca-Cola with 2 C's because it looks better in advertising. And for the first few years, that's all Coca-Cola was, a fountain drink. You couldn't take it home, you couldn't buy it in a store, you had to actually go somewhere to drink it. But in 1894, a businessman named Joseph Bidenhahn had a different idea, that what if you could take the Coke, put it in a glass bottle and sell it everywhere? And Pemberton's company loved that idea.
Bottles. Bottles? Yes, sir. Bottles. Folks could take them home.
So they started licensing Coke to bottlers across the country. And suddenly, Coca-Cola wasn't just a drink. It was a product that you could buy and drink everywhere. But here's the problem. The bottles were boring. They were just straight glass containers with a paper label slapped on them. They looked like every other bottle on the shelf. So by the early 1900s, Coca-Cola had a massive problem: imitations. And not just a few, but hundreds of them, like Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola, Coke with a K, and a bunch of others. And in the poorly lit general stores of 1910, with dozens of similar looking bottles, it was nearly impossible to tell them apart. So the company was losing money, losing trust, and losing customers who thought they were buying the real thing, but were not. So in 1915, the company sent out a challenge to their glass manufacturers. Design a new bottle, one so unique, so distinctive that even if you dropped it and it shattered into pieces, you could just pick up a fragment and know exactly what it came from. Oh, and one more thing, they wanted a bottle that you should be able to recognize even in complete darkness with just a silhouette or by touch. It seemed impossible, but 8 glass companies took the challenge. Most of them played it safe. They submitted bottles with embossed logos, unique labels, and different colored glasses. All of them were like perfectly fine, but all of them were completely forgettable. But in Terre Haute, Indiana, at the Root Glass Company, a foreman named Alexander Samuelson had an idea. He gathered his team and told them that we need to design a bottle based on the actual ingredients of Coca-Cola. So not the logo, not the brand colors, but an actual ingredient that makes Coca-Cola. They started researching and found an encyclopedia with all the ingredients, like a coca leaf, sugar, and finally they found a cacao pod. It had an elongated shape, deep vertical grooves, and a bulging silhouette in the middle. And that was their eureka moment. So Dean took that image back to the factory and started sketching. a bottle that mimics the cacao pod, narrow at the top, wider in the middle, and vertical grooves and contours running down on the side. The first prototype was too bulky, too exaggerated. It wouldn't even fit in the standard bottling equipment. So they refined it, made the body more slimmer, the curves more smooth, but they kept the essential contours, and finally, by the late 1915, they reached at this design. When Coca-Cola's executives saw the submissions, the choice was obvious. The root glass bottle wasn't just different, it was kind of alive, it had a personality. On November 16, 1915, they filed for a patent, and it was granted on November 25 in the same month. The contour bottle went into full production in early 1916, and almost immediately the sales went up. Not just a little, but significantly. Because now, on crowded shelves, customers could easily spot the Coke bottle. There was no confusion and no hesitation anymore. But more than that, people remembered it. The bottle became part of the experience, not just a container, but part of what made Coca-Cola special. But how did a team of glassmakers in 1915, who were just trying to copy a cacao pod, accidentally create something that feels this right? So let's break down this design. The contour bottle had three different zones: the neck, the shoulder, and the body. When you hold it like this from the neck, it's very narrow, about 1.5 inches in diameter, perfectly for single-handedly carrying it around. But when you grip the body, that's where the magic happens. Those vertical grooves, the contours, are not just for decoration, they are very functional. When you're holding a smooth cylinder like this, your hands work against the gravity. So you have to constantly squeeze it to keep your grip. And if you add condensation to that, your hand will just slide right off. That's why cups have handles and wine glasses have that stem. But with a Coke bottle, your fingers naturally fall into these grooves. They're like built-in grip points. Your index fingers sit in one groove, middle finger in another one, the last two fingers go into this bottom curve, your thumb rests on the opposite side. So the bottle doesn't just sit in, it kind of locks into your hand. These contours create multiple positive location points where your skin can make contact. So more contact means more friction, and more friction means a more secure grip. That's why you don't have to think about holding it. You just hold it from exact this point, like not from here, but mostly from here. It just feels more natural. But there's one more reason, something less scientific and more sensual. See, look at this shape. It's not very geometric, it's more organic. It mimics shape found in nature, especially in the human body. And in the 1916, people noticed this immediately. They start calling it the hobo skirt bottle, after a fashion trend where skirts were narrow at the bottom and created this tapered feminine silhouette. And later, it got another nickname, the Mae West bottle, named after the actress known for her curves, the narrow top, the full middle, and the tapered base. That's why it's not just something easy to hold. The proportion of this bottle follow principles that humans naturally find appealing. The way the curves flow, the ratio of the width to height, everything is perfect. And that's why it made Coca-Cola more than a soda drink. It showed up in every moment that mattered. First dates, summer barbecues, sports matches, family dinners. It even appeared in movies, in the hands of movie stars, or in TV shows. The bottle was not just in the background, it was becoming part of how people visualized happiness, togetherness, the good life. But in the 40s, it went even further than that. During World War II, Coca-Cola made a famous promise that every American soldier could get a Coke for only 5 cents, no matter where they were stationed. And for that, they built 64 bottling plants around the world. In North Africa, in Pacific Islands, Europe, everywhere. For soldiers, who were far from their home, that bottle became a symbol of the taste of America. And interestingly, when local people saw these bottles, they were fascinated by this strange curvy bottle from America. And after the war, the soldiers went back, they returned home. But those bottling plants, they stayed. And that's how the bottle went global. You could find this exact bottle in almost every country on earth. Different languages, different customs, different foods, but the same bottle and the same Coke. In 1950, the Time magazine even put the bottle on its cover. So, not the Coca-Cola company, but the bottle itself. It was the first time in the history that a commercial product had ever received that honor. And the cover cleverly showed that the world is now drinking Coca-Cola. But I think anything truly doesn't become part of a culture until it starts showing up in art. The Coke bottle was first painted by Salvador Dali in his painting Poetry of America. Then Eduardo Paolozzi used it in his collages in the late 1940s. Robert Rauschenberg included it into his sculptures. But then came Andy Warhol. And if you don't know who Andy Warhol is, let me explain a bit. He was the guy who made things viral with just his art decades before the internet. Whether it's Marilyn Monroe, Elvis Presley, or even a can of tomatoes. In 1962, Warhol created a series of Coke bottle paintings, which were simple, repeated, sometimes in color and sometimes in black and white. He wasn't trying to sell Coke, he was making a statement about American consumer culture. He famously said that a Coke is a Coke, and no amount of money can get you a better Coke than the one the bum on the corner is drinking. The president drinks the same Coke as you do, the movie star, the factory worker, the kid on the street corner. He made the bottle democratic, and today the Coke bottle is in the permanent collection of major museums like the Museum of Modern Art in New York and the Design Museum in London. It sits next to the Picassos and the sculptures. Now, art and culture can make something visible and relatable, but to sell a product and make it part of everyday life, you need one more thing: marketing. Coca-Cola has always been really good at marketing. They were doing brand building long before most companies even knew that what brand building is. And in the center of that brand building was this bottle. Because people remember shapes more than the logos. So they started advertising the bottle or the silhouette everywhere. They painted the bottle on buildings, on barn sides. They put it on the calendars that hung in homes for years. They also created objects like serving trays, clocks, thermometers, toys, all featuring that contour shapes. So the bottle became like a TV star. They described it in radio ads. They printed it on billboards. But the most brilliant part is that they didn't just advertise the product. They always advertised the moments. They would show you happiness. They'd show you people laughing, connecting, living. And in every single one of these moments, there was the bottle. So your brain started making connections. So whenever you see the bottle, you feel happy. You see the bottle, you think of good times. And then at one point, they even stopped showing the bottles. They could just show you a Santa in red dress or a polar bear in a red scarf. And your brain instantly said, yep, that's the Coke's ad. The colors, the vibe, the feeling. It was all so familiar that the brand worked even without the product on screen. This is like classical conditioning by consumerism. And here's another proof of that. In 1985, Coca-Cola changed their formula, a new Coke. It was supposed to be better. Taste test and all the research said that people preferred it. But the moment it hit the shelves, people just hated it. They wanted the Coke back. Because people didn't just miss the taste, they missed the experience they associated with that taste. The taste plus the bottle plus the ritual of drinking Coke, all of that had become like a one core memory. And even though new Coke came in the exact same contour bottle, people still rejected it. So within 3 months, Coca-Cola brought the original formula back as Coca-Cola Classic. And suddenly, the sales shot up. Some people say that the new Coke was a marketing stunt. It probably wasn't, but it did prove one thing, that consistency matters. People were not just loyal to the drink, they were loyal to the experience that the bottle created around the drink. So when we talk about why the Coke bottle is iconic, this is what I mean. The design, the feel, the memories, the ads. Over the decades, all of that merged together until the bottle and the Coke became inseparable. But then the world changed. In 1970s, a new material arrived. Plastic. It's cheaper, lighter, easier to ship. It didn't even shatter if you dropped it. Plus, you could make bigger bottles. So plastic seemed like the obvious choice. And Coca-Cola, like every other beverage company, had either to adapt or get left behind. So when the FDA approved PET plastic for beverages, Coca-Cola started using them. It's a type of plastic that's clear, lightweight, and it could hold carbonation. So within a few years, plastic Coke bottles started appearing everywhere. But they kept the iconic shape. They made plastic bottles with the same contour design, same curves, same proportions, same everything. It looked perfectly like a normal Coke bottle. But something was off. The Coke kind of tasted different. It was not like terrible, but just not the same. And this wasn't a few people, it was widespread. People who had been drinking Coke their entire lives could tell that something was changed. But the formula hadn't changed. It's the same syrup, same carbonation, same everything. The only difference was the containers. So how could that possibly affect the taste? Let's start with the science. There's actually several things happening here. First, there's permeability. Glass is completely impermeable. Nothing gets in, nothing gets out. It's a perfect barrier between the liquid and the outside world. On the other hand, plastic, even the good one like PET, is slightly permeable. At the molecular level, it has tiny gaps, and over time, things can pass through. And what passes through? Two main things: oxygen and carbon dioxide. Oxygen from the air can slowly seep into the bottle, and carbon dioxide, the bubbles that make Coke fizzy, can slowly seep out. This happens very slowly, so you won't notice it in a day or even a week, but over time, plastic Coke loses carbonation faster than the glass Coke. And carbonation matters a lot. These bubbles are not just for texture, they actually affect how you perceive flavor. When CO2 dissolves in liquid, it creates carbonic acid. That's what gives soda its slight bite, its sharpness. Less carbonation means less of that bite. The Coke will taste flatter, sweeter, less crisp. And your tongue can detect this difference even if you don't consciously realize what's happening. And this is the reason that Coke bottles with glass have a longer shelf life than the plastic ones. Like I bought these two at the same time, and the glass one is good till April 27, if you can see it, and the plastic one is good till only April 26. That's 1 year of difference. But there's another problem with this plastic called acetaldehyde. When PET plastic is manufactured, tiny amounts of acetaldehyde can remain in the material. And acetaldehyde has a taste. It's slightly fruity, slightly sweet, kind of like overripe apples. So you might not even consciously taste it, but your brain can notice. It adds a flavor note that isn't supposed to be there. And glass doesn't do it. Glass is inert. It adds nothing to the flavor. Then there's temperature. Glass is a much better insulator than plastic. When you take out a glass bottle from the fridge, it stays cold for longer. The thick glass can hold that temperature. On the other hand, plastic is thinner and it cannot hold the temperature for longer, so it just warms up. And this temperature dramatically affects the taste perception, because cold, it suppresses sweetness. So when a Coke warms up, even a few degrees, it tastes noticeably sweeter because your taste buds can detect more of that sugar. Drinks like Coke is formulated to be consumed cold, really cold, around 1 to 4 degrees Celsius. At that temperature, the sweetness is balanced, the carbonation is sharp, everything works together. But if you let it warm up to 10 or 15 degrees, it becomes too sweet. the flavor profile just falls apart. So even if you start at the same temperature in both bottles, by the time you're halfway through the bottle, the plastic one is warmer, and your brain registers that as a different taste. So that's the chemistry and physics. But there's one more layer to this: psychology. Because taste isn't just what your tongue detects, it's what your brain interprets. And your brain is influenced by everything around the experience. Like a coffee tastes better in a porcelain cup than in a paper cup. Food tastes better in heavy plates with silverware than flimsy disposable plates. Similarly, when it comes to soft drinks or any kind of drinks per se, glass have that upper hand over plastic or paper. It has weight, it's cold, it's smooth, and then there's this satisfying sound when you open a glass bottle, the pressure release, the slight clink of glass. All of these sensory cues just enhances the taste of that first sip. On the other hand, plastic is light, it crinkles, it feels cheap because it literally is cheap. And all of that influences your expectation of how the drink should taste. Studies have shown that if you give people the exact same wine in different bottles, one expensive looking and one cheap looking, they'll rate the expensive one as tasting better. The same wine, different bottle. And the same studies have been done with a Coke. Half the people were given Coca-Cola from glass bottles, another half from plastic bottles. And people still said that the glass bottle tasted better, even though it was identical. So is the taste difference real or imaginary? The answer is it's both. The CO2 loss is real, the acetaldehyde is real, the temperature difference is real, but the psychological component, it just amplifies all of it. And of course, Coca-Cola, they know it. They've done the research, they understand that the glass bottle provides a much better experience than the plastic one, but then why they do it? The answer is simple. Plastic is just easier to work with. Like, look at these two. This glass bottle is 0.2 liters and this plastic one is 0.33 liters. But both of them has almost the same footprint because plastic is thin, it's flexible, so it can hold more Coke in the same space. Then if you think about the weight, this 0.2 bottles is about 517 grams and this 0.33 liter plastic bottle is only 366 grams. So it's about 30% lighter than a glass bottle. And one bottle might doesn't feel like a big difference, but multiply that by billions of bottles, and suddenly you are saving tons of weight. Less weight means less fuel, less shipping cost, and less storage cost. So from a business point of view, plastic is just a dream. And that's why you see plastic bottles everywhere, in cafes, restaurants, supermarkets, vending machine, food delivery, it's everywhere. They are light, they are cheap, and they don't break. And this small glass bottle, it's almost nowhere. You won't see it in vending machines, you won't see it in most supermarkets, you won't even see it in most cafes. I had to go to a actual special drink store just to get it. It's heavier, it's fragile, and it's more expensive for less volume. But coming back to the plastic bottle, there is another reason that it's everywhere, and that is its resemblance to the iconic Coke bottle. It has the same curves and the same silhouette as the original bottle. And there are only two bottles which has the similarity. This 0.33 liter plastic one and this 0.2 liter glass one. Every other bottle is either a bit too long or too thick. So what's the answer for a perfect Coke? Is it glass or is it plastic? Honestly, there is no answer. The glass bottle was designed for a different world. A world where you would walk to the corner store, buy a single cold Coke, drink it right there, and then return the bottle. But we don't live in that world anymore. We live in a world that needs convenience, that demands scale, that has to think about shipping costs and carbon footprints and feeding billions of people efficiently. And for that, plastic one is perfect. And this coexistence of both worlds allow us to enjoy the perfection and practicality. Because a Coke is just a Coke, but the way you drink it is up to you. That's all for today. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.